And welcome back to the Cox 11 Sports Report. At this time, we're privileged to be joined by the state football editor of VirginiaPreps.com. That is Rod Johnson. Rod, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely, not a problem.
You take a look at the Eastern Region football playoffs now in the books. The state playoffs are about to begin. This is your time of the year. You love to see all the teams around the state go at it. What surprised you, though, about the region playoffs and the season in general?
I think both of the regional championship games were pretty surprising. Obviously, the deficit in the Lake Taylor-Phoebus game was a pretty big deal. I don't think that you figured the four-time state champions to go out like that. So Lake Taylor, that kind of win has to send a little bit of a shiver down the spine of the rest of the state. And I think in Division 6, Oscar Smith was a nationally ranked team. They had held that position all year. For Ocean Lakes to come in there and beat them and do it with such a dominating effort on defense, is definitely noteworthy.
Phoebus had won 6 in a row regional championships in Division 5. Oscar Smith had won 4 of the last 5 and also claiming 2 state championships in that process. Is it a bit of a changing of the guard because both of these teams, Ocean Lakes and Lake Taylor, are loaded with underclassmen?
I hesitate to call it a changing of the guard after just one win, but considering what both teams have coming back next season, they'll probably both come into the season as the preseason favorites over Oscar Smith and Lake Taylor. So if you consider the wins this year, plus where they'll likely start next year preseason, they're certainly at the top of the mountain right now, and deservedly so.
Oscar Smith and Phoebus certainly aren't going away anytime soon. They've been great programs for a long time now, but in the case of Oscar Smith, Coach Rich Morgan might be a college coach at some point down the road. Phoebus had a coaching change this season from Stan Sexton to Jeremy Blunt after an incident that occurred at practice. Where do you see those programs moving forward?
I think Oscar Smith, as long as Coach Morgan is there, are going to be in the state title hunt. They've been in the final 8 for the last 9 seasons, so it's definitely not a program that's going to go away at any time soon. Coaching changes, of course, would always change that dynamic a little bit. However, I don't know that we see Morgan going anywhere just yet. At Phoebus, they've got some questions to settle. They've made the final 8 12 years in a row, so they're probably in a more solid position. Things will change a little bit with some of the dynamics next year going to the 6A system for football, but I would expect Phoebus to be one of the top challengers in the 4A system, and Oscar Smith will be among the best in the 6A bracket.
Now let's look at these state playoff games coming up in the semifinals. You have Ocean Lakes undefeated taking on C.D. Hilton, and you have in Division 5 Lake Taylor playing North Stafford, the Northwest region champion there. How do you kind of break down these two matchups?
I think it's an easy pick to kind of be a homer in this one, but I think it's also the right pick in both cases. Ocean Lakes defensively, when you hold Oscar Smith to 10 points, which hadn't been done since their 2008 state semifinal against Oakton in a game that they won, that kind of defensive performance earns you the respect at the next level. They're playing a C.D. Hilton team that's pretty good but has lost twice this season, and when they've lost, they've had some offensive problems. So if you're a team that can't really explode offensively and you're going against that Ocean Lakes defense right now, probably not a good sign.
So it sounds like you got them both moving forward to the state championship games. Do you see them both capturing state championships going forward?
Well, I think Lake Taylor's got a tougher matchup this week with North Stafford. That's a team that did make the state semifinals last year, took Phoebus to a double overtime 1-point loss. So Lake Taylor's got a little bit more work to do. But yeah, I see them both advancing to the state championship. From there, it depends on the matchup, but there's a Stonebridge team out in Division 5 that is hungry for a second title and has some experience issues that would give them an advantage over Lake Taylor. But again, when you beat Phoebus 54-0, it's hard to say you're an underdog in any game. Division 6, Ocean Lakes is a top-ranked team in the state and on our website. Probably will be the favorite going in, but going to have a tough matchup for whoever comes out of that Oakton LC Bird contest.
Let's talk about some individual standouts this year across the region. What players do you see making an immediate impact at the college level next year on Saturdays?
I think the 2 guys that come to mind first are Taquan Mazzell, running back at Bayside, just because he's going to go into a nice situation at UVA where they've got some running backs, but he'll be a good fit for what they do, kind of replacing that Perry Jones role. So I would look for him to be a guy that gets on the field pretty early. And then locally here at Old Dominion, Melvin Vaughn is a kid that on either side of the ball could be an impact player just because he's physically ready to play the game right now. As a wide receiver in that Old Dominion offense, definitely a guy that's going to get a lot of touches as well.
And you're a guy that covers recruiting all year long, not just during the season, but in the off season. You focus a lot of your attention on that. Can a player really help his stock in the playoffs here, to state playoffs? Because a lot of times you look at the film, junior season, so forth, a lot of these combines and camps. Can somebody really help their stock coming up here in the state playoffs?
Yeah, I think you take a look at a guy like Derek Noddy at Ocean Lakes, who maybe was a little overshadowed by Andrew Brown and Jalen Holmes and Deshaun Hand, some of the bigger names in the state. And his performance turned in against Oscar Smith has to raise eyebrows and has to get a review of that film. Probably going to see him jump up a little bit.
You've been doing recruiting for about a decade plus now. We'll get you out on this ride, and we thank you for stopping by. You look at next year's crop of players. We've got 2 championship games still to come in the state playoffs here, but there's just a bunch of prospects throughout the whole state, and especially the Tidewater area. Is this the best crop of talent you've seen in Tidewater coming up for next year?
It's certainly among the top. I think you start right at the very top with a guy like Quinn Blanding, who might be, outside of Percy Harvin, maybe the best all-around football player this area has seen in the last decade or so. Certainly Andrew Brown has all the physical tools to be a big-time player, Derek Nottie as well, and Jalen Holmes. You start with those 4 just from this area, and yeah, 2014 is going to be a pretty special class.
Should be a fun year. Well, Rod, as always, thanks for stopping by and dropping some knowledge on us.
Absolutely.
Well, stick around. We've got more here on the Cox 11 Sports Report.